Most people hear the words omega-3 and think of exactly two things: a fish oil capsule sitting in a kitchen drawer, or a piece of salmon on a dinner plate a couple of times a week if they're really trying. And if you clicked on a video with "Heal You Instantly" in the title, you're probably expecting something dramatic too. Eat this one food, wake up fixed. That's not how any of this actually works, and it's not the promise being made here. Healing was never going to happen in a single moment. It's something your cells are doing quietly, every single day, and what they rebuild with depends entirely on what you hand them at the table. That's exactly where this list gets interesting. Tucked into this lineup is a cooking oil almost no Western kitchen has ever opened a bottle of, one that, gram for gram, outmeasures the seed oil most people already treat as the gold standard for this fat. And further up the list is the seed of a vegetable most home cooks scoop out with a spoon and throw straight into the trash, unaware they're tossing out one of the more concentrated sources of this exact fat sitting in their own kitchen. 13 foods. Real research behind every one. Here's where the countdown begins. Number 13. Chia seeds. Chia seeds get filed under diet trend more often than real nutrition, but that reputation undersells them badly. Drop a spoonful into water and watch what happens over the next 10 minutes. The seeds swell, gel, and multiply several times over in volume. That same reaction happens once they hit your stomach, and it's doing more work than most people realize. That gel slows down how quickly food moves through your digestive tract, which means steadier blood sugar and a fuller feeling that actually holds, not the kind that fades in 40 minutes. Underneath that gel sits a genuinely strong dose of alpha-linolenic acid, the plant-based omega-3 fat your body can't manufacture on its own and has to get entirely from food. Unlike a couple of other seeds later on this list, chia doesn't need to be ground before your body can use it. The seed coat is soft enough that whole seeds still release their fat and fiber intact. No blender required. Long-distance runners in Mexico's Sierra Madre have used chia as endurance fuel for generations, mixed into water with a bit of lime and a touch of sweetener. Modern sports science has taken a real interest in why, and research on chia's hydration and sustained energy effects keeps pointing back to that same gelling fiber, which slows fluid loss and steadies energy release during long physical effort. Manganese and calcium round out the profile, both delivered in genuinely useful amounts from just a couple of tablespoons. Stirred into oatmeal overnight, blended into a smoothie, or turned into a simple pudding with milk and a little honey, chia asks almost nothing of you in the kitchen. 2 tablespoons a day is enough to matter, which makes it one of the easiest single additions on this entire list. Number 12. Watercress. Watercress has been treated as a health food since long before that term existed. Ancient Persian and Greek soldiers reportedly ate it before battle, convinced it kept them sharp and strong, and it turns out they were onto something they had no way of measuring at the time. This peppery little green carries a real amount of alpha-linolenic acid, tucked into leaves that grow directly in flowing water rather than soil. Nutrition researchers ranking vegetables by nutrient density per calorie have repeatedly placed watercress at or near the very top of the entire list, ahead of far more famous greens that get all the attention. What sets watercress apart is a compound released when its leaves are chewed or chopped, one that laboratory research has studied for its ability to help the body clear out damaged cells before they cause bigger problems down the line. That effect works alongside watercress's omega-3 content, rather than as some separate, unrelated benefit sitting next to it. Vitamin K content is unusually high here too, important for bone density and for proper blood clotting. 2 functions that almost never get mentioned in the same sentence, despite depending on the exact same nutrient to work properly. Most people have only ever seen watercress as a garnish shoved to the side of a plate and left there, uneaten, tossed into a salad with a light vinaigrette, blended into a soup, or layered onto a sandwich in place of lettuce. It holds its peppery bite well and takes almost no real effort to fold into a normal week of meals. Number 11. Mustard greens. Mustard greens are kale's spicier, far less famous cousin, but that lack of fame has nothing to do with what's actually in them. These leaves carry a solid dose of alpha-linolenic omega-3 fat, plus a glucosinolate content, responsible for the sharp, almost wasabi-like bite they have when eaten raw. That sharpness is doing real work. Glucosinolates convert into compounds that researchers have studied for supporting the liver's own detoxification enzymes, part of a growing body of evidence around cruciferous vegetables as an entire category. Calcium content in mustard greens runs genuinely high for a leafy vegetable, and unlike some other greens, they don't carry enough oxalates to meaningfully block your body from using it. There's a caution worth mentioning honestly. Instead of pretending every food on a list like this is flawless, mustard greens, like other cruciferous vegetables, contain compounds that in very large, unusual amounts have been studied for their effect on thyroid function, particularly in people who already have an iodine deficiency. For anyone eating normal serving sizes as part of a varied diet, nutrition researchers don't consider this a practical concern, but it's worth knowing rather than glossing over. Cooked briefly in a hot pan with garlic and a splash of vinegar, mustard greens lose most of their raw bitterness while holding onto their nutrients, turning from an intense, sharp leaf into something genuinely easy to eat several times a week without it feeling like a chore. Number 10. Broccoli sprouts. Broccoli has a wholesome, slightly boring reputation. The vegetable parents force onto plates because it's good for you, rarely because anyone's actually excited about it. Broccoli sprouts, the young shoots harvested just days after germination, flip that entire story. Gram for gram, broccoli sprouts carry a concentration of sulforaphane precursor dramatically higher than the mature vegetable most people are used to eating, in some lab measurements by a factor of 10 or more. Sulforaphane itself has been one of the more heavily studied plant compounds of the last 2 decades, examined specifically for its ability to switch on the body's own internal antioxidant defenses rather than simply supplying antioxidants from the outside. Broccoli, at any stage of growth, also delivers a real amount of alpha-linolenic omega-3 fat, layered on top of that sulforaphane activity, instead of competing with it for attention. Vitamin C content in the sprouts rivals citrus fruit by weight, supporting the same collagen and immune pathways nutrition science keeps circling back to across completely unrelated food categories on this list and beyond it. Sprinkled raw over a sandwich, folded into a salad, or blended straight into a green juice, broccoli sprouts have a mild, slightly peppery bite that's easy to work into meals you're already making. A small handful a day genuinely is enough, since the concentration here does most of the heavy lifting without any effort from you. Number 9. Ground flaxseed. Flaxseed is the food most nutrition-conscious people already half know about, which is exactly why it's worth getting the details right instead of repeating the vague version everyone's already heard. Whole flaxseed is one of the most concentrated plant sources of alpha-linolenic omega-3 fat available anywhere. But there's a catch almost nobody mentions. Eaten whole, most of those seeds pass straight through your digestive system fully intact, taking their fat content with them on the way out. Grinding flaxseed, even briefly in a coffee grinder, is what actually unlocks it. Beyond the fat itself, flaxseed contains lignans, plant compounds that behave in the body somewhat like a mild, plant-based form of estrogen. Research on lignan intake has linked it to hormone-related benefits that vary depending on the population studied, an area where the science is genuinely still developing rather than fully settled. The fiber content here matters just as much. A couple of tablespoons of ground flax delivers a real dose of both soluble and insoluble fiber, feeding beneficial gut bacteria while also helping move things along, quite literally through the digestive tract. Stirred into yogurt, baked into muffins, or added straight into a smoothie, ground flaxseed disappears texturally into almost anything you're already eating. Buying it pre-ground shortens its shelf life considerably, so grinding whole seeds fresh in small batches and storing them in the fridge keeps that fat from breaking down before you ever get the benefit of it. Number 8. Hemp seeds. Hemp seeds carry a reputation problem, thanks to the plant they come from, but that has nothing to do with their actual nutrition. These small, soft seeds deliver a genuinely useful dose of alpha-linolenic omega-3 fat, and what makes them stand out on this entire list is the ratio they arrive in, a naturally favorable balance between omega-3 and omega-6 fat, something almost no other single food manages entirely on its own. That ratio matters more than it sounds. Most modern diets run heavily toward omega-6 fat from processed cooking oils, which tips the body's inflammation balance in the wrong direction over time. Hemp seeds arrive already closer to what nutrition researchers consider an ideal ratio, without requiring any extra thought or math from you at the dinner table. Protein is where hemp seeds separate themselves even further. They contain edestin, a protein your body digests and uses with unusual efficiency compared to most plant proteins, delivering a genuinely complete amino acid profile in the process. Magnesium and iron round out the mineral profile, both delivered in meaningful amounts from a small daily serving. Hemp seeds have almost no flavor of their own, which makes them one of the easiest additions on this entire list. Sprinkled over cereal, blended into a smoothie, or stirred straight into salad dressing, a couple of tablespoons a day works quietly in the background without changing how anything actually tastes. Number 7. Olives and extra virgin olive oil. Olives get pulled into omega-3 conversations constantly because of their reputation as a heart-healthy fat, and that's worth correcting directly instead of letting the assumption slide. The overwhelming majority of the fat in olives and the oil pressed from them is oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat, not the alpha-linolenic omega-3 fat this entire list is actually built around. Olives contribute only a small amount of true omega-3, so anyone eating them specifically to chase that number is aiming at the wrong target entirely. Where olive oil earns its place regardless is a compound called oleocanthal, found specifically in high-quality, freshly pressed extra virgin olive oil. Research on oleocanthal has found it produces a genuine anti-inflammatory effect in the body through a pathway similar to certain over-the-counter pain relievers, just far gentler and delivered through food instead of medication. Combining olive oil with actual omega-3 sources appears to be where the real benefit shows up. Omega-3 fats are fat-soluble and notoriously unstable once exposed to heat and air, so cooking or dressing an omega-3 rich meal in good olive oil helps your body absorb those other fats more completely while adding its own separate anti-inflammatory contribution on top of them. A tablespoon or two drizzled raw over a finished dish, rather than heated to high temperatures, preserves the most delicate compounds and turns olive oil into a genuine partner for everything else on this list, even without carrying much omega-3 fat of its own. Number 6. Black currants. Black currants rarely show up on an American plate, but across parts of Europe, they're a genuine kitchen staple, and their nutrition profile explains exactly why researchers keep circling back to them. The seeds inside black currants and the oil pressed from them contain both alpha-linolenic omega-3 fat and gamma-linolenic acid, an omega-6 fat that behaves in a distinctly anti-inflammatory way rather than the pro-inflammatory way most omega-6 fat typically does. That kind of pairing, two different fats working in the same direction instead of against each other, is rare enough in a single whole food that researchers took specific notice of it when black currant seed oil first came under study. Vitamin C content in black currants actually exceeds oranges by weight, a fact that surprises most people the first time they hear it, given how thoroughly citrus fruit has claimed that particular reputation for itself. Anthocyanins, the deep purple pigments responsible for the fruit's color, have been studied specifically for eye strain and visual fatigue, with some research pointing to measurable improvements in night vision and eye adaptation among people consuming black currant extract on a regular basis. Fresh black currants have a sharp, tart bite that mellows considerably once cooked down with a bit of honey into a compote, spooned over yogurt or oatmeal. Dried black currants, less common but increasingly easy to find, concentrate that same nutrition into a snack you can eat straight from the bag without any preparation at all. Number 5. Butternut squash seeds. Every fall, millions of people carve into a butternut or acorn squash, scoop the seeds straight into the trash without a second look, and never think about them again. That's almost exactly the scene this list's opening minute was hinting at. And those seeds deserve far better than the compost bin. Squash seeds carry a real dose of alpha-linolenic omega-3 fat, alongside a mineral profile that leans heavily toward zinc and copper, two minerals that work together in the body's connective tissue repair process. Copper specifically plays a direct role in forming collagen and elastin, the proteins responsible for skin elasticity and joint flexibility, a connection most people have never heard made explicit before. Magnesium shows up here too, in an amount that meaningfully contributes to a day's requirement from just a small handful, supporting muscle function and nerve signaling the same way it does in pumpkin seeds, their more famous cousin from the same plant family. Fiber content in the seed's outer layer adds a genuine digestive benefit on top of the fat and mineral content, assuming you're willing to eat the shell rather than crack it away first. Rinsed, patted dry, tossed with a little oil and salt, and roasted at a low temperature until golden, squash seeds turn what most people throw away into one of the easiest snacks on this entire list. Save them next time you're cooking down a squash for soup. You're currently throwing away something genuinely worth eating. Number 4. Walnuts. Ounce for ounce, walnuts remain the single richest source of plant-based omega-3 fat among all tree nuts, a fact that keeps showing up in nutrition database after nutrition database, no matter who's doing the measuring. What's less commonly discussed is what happens to walnuts once your gut bacteria actually get involved. Walnuts contain L-tannins, compounds that your gut microbiome converts into a substance called urolithin A, currently one of the more actively researched compounds in the entire field of cellular aging. Early research on urolithin A has focused on its potential role in supporting mitochondrial function, the tiny energy-producing structures inside your cells, though the science here is still developing and genuinely far from settled. Beyond that, trials tracking vascular function in regular walnut eaters have recorded measurable improvements in how well blood vessels dilate and respond to physical stress, an effect researchers have tied to the combined action of walnuts' omega-3 content and its polyphenol load, working together rather than as separate, unrelated benefits. But walnuts do carry one downside worth naming honestly. Their fat content oxidizes quickly once the shell is cracked, especially if left sitting out in a warm kitchen for weeks at a time. Buying walnuts whole and cracking them fresh, or storing shelled walnuts in the fridge or freezer, keeps that fat from breaking down before you get any real benefit from it. A small handful, roughly 7 halves, eaten raw or tossed into a salad, is genuinely enough to matter. Number 3. Perilla seeds and oil. This is the pantry oil this entire list's opening minute was pointing toward, and it's one almost nobody outside of Korean and Japanese kitchens has ever even heard of. Perilla, sometimes labeled shiso, is a leafy herb whose seeds get pressed into an oil carrying one of the highest concentrations of alpha-linolenic omega-3 fat of any oil ever measured, in some analyses outmeasuring flaxseed oil, the very food most people already treat as the gold standard for this exact fat. Perilla oil has been an everyday cooking ingredient across Korea for centuries, drizzled raw over rice, vegetables, and grilled meat, rather than heated to high temperatures, a tradition that happens to protect its most delicate compounds instead of destroying them in the pan. Research on populations that use perilla oil regularly has linked it to markers of reduced inflammation and improved cholesterol ratios, findings that echo almost exactly what's been found with fish oil in similar populations elsewhere. The leaves themselves, distinct from the seeds, carry rosmarinic acid, an antioxidant compound studied separately for its effect on seasonal allergy symptoms, giving perilla two entirely different nutritional contributions from two different parts of the very same plant. A teaspoon of perilla oil drizzled over rice, salad, or roasted vegetables, used raw rather than for high-heat cooking, is genuinely enough to work this into a normal week. It's becoming easier to find in Asian grocery stores and increasingly online for anyone curious enough to go looking for it. Number 2. Camelina seeds and oil. Camelina is one of the oldest cultivated oil crops in human history, grown across parts of Europe for thousands of years before falling out of favor once cheaper seed oils took over the market, and it's currently in the middle of a genuine research comeback. The seeds carry a strong concentration of alpha-linolenic omega-3 fat, alongside a natural antioxidant content high enough that camelina oil resists going rancid far longer than flaxseed oil does, a practical advantage that matters more than it sounds once you've had to throw out a bottle of spoiled oil. Ancient Roman and Northern European archaeological sites have turned up camelina seeds going back thousands of years. Evidence this wasn't some minor crop, but a genuine dietary staple across multiple, unrelated cultures, long before anyone understood what alpha-linolenic acid even was. Vitamin E content in camelina oil runs notably high, working alongside its omega-3 fat to help protect it from oxidizing, essentially packaging its own protection inside the very same bottle. Research comparing camelina oil to more common seed oils has found favorable effects on cholesterol markers in people who simply swapped one for the other over several weeks, without requiring any other change to their diet at all. With a light, slightly nutty flavor, camelina oil works well drizzled over roasted vegetables or blended into a salad dressing, and its longer shelf life makes it a genuinely practical choice for anyone who doesn't cook with specialty oils often enough to finish a bottle quickly. Number 1. Seaweed and sea vegetables. Nearly every food on this list so far shares one quiet limitation. Almost all of them deliver alpha-linolenic acid, the plant form of omega-3, which your body then has to convert into the more active forms before it can really use them, and that conversion process is genuinely inefficient, often turning only a small fraction of what you actually eat into a usable form. Seaweed breaks that pattern completely. Certain sea vegetables, particularly varieties of nori and kelp, contain measurable amounts of EPA and DHA directly, the same active omega-3 forms typically associated exclusively with fish, with no conversion step required at all. That's not a small technical detail. It's the entire reason fish became the default omega-3 source in the first place. Since fish get their EPA and DHA from eating algae somewhere along the ocean food chain, rather than manufacturing it themselves from scratch, sea vegetables sit right at that same original source. Iodine content in seaweed runs significant, essential for proper thyroid function, though it's genuinely possible to overdo it with certain varieties eaten in large, regular amounts, so moderation and variety matter here more than with almost anything else on this list. Sea vegetables also carry a real amount of fiber and a distinctive category of antioxidants found almost nowhere else in the plant world, tied directly to their marine environment. Dried nori sheets, wakame folded into a simple soup, or a small side of seasoned seaweed salad, are all genuinely easy ways to work this into a normal week. A few times, not necessarily every single day. It's the one food on this entire list that skips the conversion problem altogether, which is exactly why it earned the final spot. 13 foods, and one idea sitting underneath every single one of them. Healing was never going to happen in one dramatic moment. It happens in the ordinary, repeated choices your body quietly turns into raw material, day after day, whether you're paying attention to it or not. Every meal either hands your cells something useful to work with, or leaves them to make do with less. None of this requires an expensive supplement aisle or a complicated new diet plan. In most cases, it's simply a matter of choosing a handful of these foods a little more often and letting small, boring consistency do what a single dramatic change never actually could. That's a less exciting promise than heal instantly, but it happens to be the one that's actually true, and the one your body has been waiting on the whole time. If there's a topic you want to see broken down like this one next, drop it in the comments below. I read every one of them, and they genuinely shape what gets covered next. And if this video gave you something worth remembering, a like and a subscribe goes a long way toward keeping videos like this coming. Thanks for sticking with me through this one. I'll catch you next time.